Hello y'all, and today I'm going to show you my wax seal on my save the date invitations for our wedding. Yeah,
Nice.
and that's just a nice little wax seal that I melted down and stamped on there. And set that down. I did not create or invent or patent anything to do with the wax sealing kit. I actually looked up traditional ways to send elegant invitations through snail mail or letter handwritten postage. And I found the evolution and establishment of wax seals. And they can date back as far as the first ancient civilizations. And I am looking forward to actually continuing to use the wax sealing kits on my invitations for my wedding day and further invitations to add just a little bit of like an elegant but delicate and elaborate little touch to my invitations. And so now I'm going to take us back in time and just kind of elaborate on the points of the tradition of the wax seals, how they came to be, and how they've evolved along the way. And then at the very end, I'll demonstrate to y'all how I actually use my wax sealing kit. Okay, so the establishment and evolution of the seals started with before our first pen and paper were created. So before written communication was made like in stone tablets with a hammer and a chisel, and don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but that's how written communication first started. And the way that they authenticated those tablets was with these little cylinder shapes, and they would actually just press it into at some part of the clay of the tablet, so that way they could show that they were the ones actually scribing on those tablets, and the tablets couldn't be forged because cylinder shapes apparently back then, any like perfectly round materials were fabricated, and the only folks that could fabricate that were folks of like higher echelon in the community. So that also led into medieval times when the establishment of pen and paper first did become something that was very elite. Only those with lots of money or prestige or very high importance in the community had access to it. And that started with like the popes and the royal representatives of the people, and they used seals to stamp important documents. And then because there was pen and paper, they no longer had to use simple shapes. They could now incorporate waxes and resins, and the resins carried like more of a color and like a coarse material to them, and then the beeswax allowed for the consistency of the stamp itself. And it was a really neat process even back then, and it only became more elaborate over time. A couple of the main purposes of the seals that also evolved started again as authenticating the seal and who it was being delivered from, but also for security purposes, because as the letters got sent out, we want to make sure that the seal stayed intact to show that the letter had not been tampered with. If the letter had, the seal was broken, it more likely could not be trusted, because that means that it was tampered with somehow. Either the whole letter itself and it was removed and placed on a fraudulent letter, or, you know, what have you. So besides authenticating for decorative purposes, for making sure that the documents were not falsified, that they were real, wax seals were also a way to keep costs down when the first paper mail was being sent, because they used to charge by envelope and by letter, but then they started using the wax so that way they could seal the letter, like how I did with this one here, and cut down the cost of how much paper had to be used in a letter. And I'm going to demonstrate to y'all now how it is that I use the wax brick that I already broke and placed in here, the metal spoon, and the flame to melt down the wax and create a wax seal stamp with my wax kit. And this is a very simple process, and they call it very meditative now, because it does take some time and it does take some patience. and we have to let the wax melt thoroughly. It doesn't take a long time, but it can feel like it during the process. And then when we melt the wax down, we want to pour it on in a nice little circle, and it's tempting to want to pour it like in a circle shape, but there's no need to do that. The best way to get a circle shape from the wax is to just pour it straight down, and it'll pool into its own little circle. And then after the circle starts forming, we can press the stamp gently into, perfect, it's melted down. We could pour the stamp gently into our circular form, and it'll leave our little authentic print in there. All right, awesome. And for showing purposes, I had one that I had already created so I could show y'all what it is that it's gonna look like. Yeah, and you can see the little wax shape.
Nice.
Yep, and then I plan on fixing these with some glue onto my invitations. And now the purpose has changed, but the history, the beautiful elaborate stamping, and the authentication that we used to use them for, and the markings that they left in our history, I hope to pass on and traditionally also. And I hope that y'all enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.